Hi everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I see we have some folks coming in. Super exciting. Good afternoon or good morning. We will get started in about a minute, just giving time for folks to come in. Okay. So hello everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Melissa Bagher-Candy and I'm here with the Canadian Women's Foundation. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the second session of our two-part Small Business Week webinar series, hosted in partnership with In Good Company. So before I introduce our moderator and our panelists, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that our work takes place on traditional First Nation, Métis, and Inuit territories. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet and work on this land. However, we do recognize that land acknowledgements are not enough, and we need to pursue truth, reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship in an ongoing effort to make right with all our relations. So quickly, some technical details. To support your participation today, we do have simultaneous interpretation. So if you haven't already, please click the interpretation option at the bottom of your screen and select a language channel. We have interpreters working today to make sure everyone's words are understood. So please select English or French from the options to ensure a seamless experience. We also have captioning available today in both French and English. Please visit the chat box for the links to access this service. If you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen during the event. We will monitor this box and pose your questions at the end of the session, doing our best to get to as many as possible. If you're having technical issues, please feel free to pop a note in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to assist you. Finally, we would love your feedback about this session. We will share a survey link at the end of the session, and we hope that you will take the time to complete it. Now I'm going to hand it over to Faiza Abdoulawi, founder of Next Level Consulting Incorporated, and co-convener of the In Good Company Community Leadership Group, who will be monitoring our panel conversation today. Over to you, Faiza.
Here we go. First thing, when you want to moderate a panel is to actually open your mic. So thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you, obviously, for the honor and the opportunity to moderate and to simply have a strong conversation today with the women around us around a very important topic during this Small Business Week. I would like to put first a bit of a context. Myself, my name is Faiza Abdallawi, and as you said, Melissa, I have my own business where I instill some feminist values. I'm a consultant, but I'm also engaged with CWF, with YWCA, with Catalyst, and with Plan International for very strong organization in our ecosystem, supporting women in their economic development and to take their place in the Canadian society. And I have this chance to collaborate as a consultant on different programs. So welcome everyone for taking this time this afternoon to connect with us around this topic. It's the second part of our two-part webinar series. I hope that you had the chance to participate and to listen yesterday to the incredible women talking about closing the gender gap around financing. We know how for small businesses, really, the devil is in the money that can circulate in our businesses to start them, to really have them grow, and to create the jobs that we also have as an ambition for our ecosystem. So within the Small Business Week, each year there is a theme, and this year the theme is quite important and quite interesting, around finding solutions for the economy that we are in, finding solutions for the issues that some of SMEs also find. And today we'll be taking or tackling this topic, shining a light on a very specific experience, the experience of women and gender diverse entrepreneurs, important actors. 18% of SMEs are run by women, and how these specific actors, women and gender diverse entrepreneurs, are facing some challenges. What are their stories? What are their ambitions? And it's not really often considered in the complexity of them. Yesterday, as we said, we discussed the questions around filling the gap or closing the gap around financing. And today it will be around bringing feminist values into our business models, into our approaches. And you'll see that from four panelists, we'll have a diversity of experience, a diversity of also very pragmatic, easy to set, easy to embed in our business plan to make our businesses more feminist and what it means. This webinar series is also a joint session co-hosted by In Good Company and the Canadian Women Foundation. I'll take 2 minutes to explain what is In Good Company. And In Good Company, it's a collaborative systemic change project of the Canadian Women Foundation, of Catalyst Canada, Plan International Canada, and the YWCA Canada, that aims to advance gender equity in and inclusion in small and medium-sized businesses, particularly those in sectors that have historically excluded women. I'm sure that some of these sectors are popping up in your head right away because they are quite known, and there is an important work to do to have more women and gender diverse people, especially those who are Black, Indigenous, and racialized, access those great jobs in our economy. The Canadian Women Foundation is a public foundation, Canadian Public Foundation for Gender Justice and Equality. And those two words, gender justice and equality, shouldn't be just on the side and taken care of by the non-for-profit. Businesses are building this country, are building jobs. So this is why when we talk about feminism, those elements come into play. To discuss all these points and many more, I would like to invite and welcome our panelists. The first one is Gerben. Gerben, thank you very much for joining us on the stage, the virtual stage. Gerben, you are the founder and the executive director of Egan Social Enterprise. How are you, Gerben?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Faiza. Thank you.
Please introduce in few words your company and what it does.
Thank you. Yes, I started Angan about 23 years ago now, and it was very much before the social enterprise movement started. And we believe in the values of creating opportunity that is equitable and just, so that we can create employment for people, but create it in a way that's sustainable. So we focus primarily on food security, and we manufacture food. We also have a cleaning business, and we really value making sure that people are supported with the employment that we're creating. So we wrap around services, and create community in this way. And so we have found that to be, over the last 2 decades, the most sustainable way to grow employee satisfaction and retention. We now have about over 100 employees, and I'm proud to say that inshallah, we will continue to grow, continue to evolve, and create sustainability, not just for food and housing, but also for the quality of life that people are living. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gerben. And we can already feel from your introduction how different the perspective and the heart that you put in your business is. It's not necessarily what we hear out there when we ask SMEs to introduce themselves. It could be so like, this is what I'm doing, right? Like, very straight to the point, but you already showing us who you're putting first, employees and people. I'll turn also to next to Jessica Duarte. You are the founder of Jess Please. How are you? And what is Jess Please?
Hi, Faiza. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So I run, it's a web development and tech consulting and education company that I've been running as a solopreneur. So I'm a sole proprietor for the past 10 years. And in my work, I primarily build websites, design and build websites. And I work primarily with nonprofits that are doing good work in their community. And that's my passion, is to support NGOs and nonprofits that are trying to make an impact on our community. And then as well with my own business, I love to mentor people, and I love to hire from parts of our society that are from groups that are normally marginalized in tech. So women, primarily, I love working with Indigenous women, immigrant women, and try to have as much diversity as I can within my partners and collaborators. For the past 5 years, I spent time at the Long Lake 58 First Nation, teaching digital skills and entrepreneurship. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, is teaching how to code and teaching people, specifically women primarily, how to enter this field. And yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And doing all this as a solopreneur, that shows how passion really bring us or give us the energy of maybe 5, 10, 20 people sometimes, right? When we hear what we're doing and all that we want to achieve, it seems that we would like to multiply ourselves. Janelle Desrosiers, founder and creative director of Bloom and Brilliance. Please do the same. Share the brilliance of your business.
So Tante, bonjour. Hello, everyone. I'm Janelle Desrosiers. I am Two-Spirit, neurodivergent, and Michifin Franco-Manitoban from Treaty 1 territory, also known as Winnipeg. And Bloom and Brilliance is an Indigenous and intersectional feminist-led design agency. Our mission is to support Indigenous and intersectional feminist entrepreneurs, community leaders, and organizations as they change the world. And we do that by building beautiful brands and websites.
Changing the world. That's quite a to-do list. Thank you, Janelle. Merci beaucoup. And next is, last but not least, is Catherine Goudian, Casey. On pourrait se parler français aussi, bilingue.
Absolument. Bonjour.
Yes, and you are the founder and CEO of B2B Match. Please tell us more about it.
Absolutely. Bonjour and hi, everyone. And it's such a pleasure to be here and to be part of the conversation. So yes, Casey Gundiam, and I have been in a tech entrepreneur since 2015. I am the CEO of B2B Match. B2B Match is like an online dating platform, but for companies. We bring together people who want to do business together. So since we launched in 2020, we have thousands of companies on the platform, and we create opportunities and have now companies from about 99 countries and 160 industries so far. We built an inclusive team, but we also, and it's also part of the DNA, that the platform itself is inclusive. So for me, it's all about bringing business into the hands of business owners and small and medium businesses. We always hear that the majority of businesses are small and medium and the backbone of the economy. And I'm sure women businesses and racialized owned businesses are the majority of small businesses. And this is why it's very important for me to continue to build this platform, which provides opportunities to all businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we just started, and we already pick some very important keywords that will be guiding the content of this discussion, really. When we were preparing for this panel, there were so many things already that were said and shared. It was important to try to capture all that in few questions for the hour. And please also, participants, ask your questions in the chat section. We will have time at the end of our conversation to take few of them. But let's start with, so it's in the title, right, of the panel today. And some people may be already reacting. Feminist entrepreneur. What is that, right? The word feminist sometimes make people react, sometimes make people overreact. So we want to take the time to start with, what does it mean to be a feminist entrepreneur for you? And how would you like the participant to understand the word in the business environment? So who wants to start with that? Maybe Gerbin.
Thank you so much. That is such a critical question. And, you know, the way that I look at entrepreneurship, right, is we have a model that was set up in the current paradigm, right? And the current paradigm is very clearly capitalist, colonialist, and it's actually based on a hegemonic structure of consumerism. Okay, so this is hurting us. It's hurting our planet. It's hurting, you know, the natural ecosystems that exist within nature, within, you know, the way that we work together as human beings. So the way that I see the feminist ecosystem is that it's circular. You see, we talk about circular economy, and I think that is when we, in my humble opinion, look not just at one bottom line. If you only consider one bottom line, you end up where we are today. Okay, we need a real paradigm shift. And what would I consider a paradigm shift? Okay, and that would be a quadruple bottom line. And that to me is much more representative of where feminist ecosystems are going and how we can transition together. So we're looking at bottom lines, people, right? The kind of employment we're creating, okay, which to me has to be much more supportive, much more understanding and not punitive, number one. People, planet. What are we doing for our planet? How are we going to sustain this beautiful, gorgeous earth that we have, right? In all of the ways that we need to sustain her. She is our source of life. Okay. Number three, profit. We have to talk about profit. You can't talk about entrepreneurship if you're not making money. Forget it. You have to talk about profit, but how do we use that profit? How do we reinvest it in our programs? This is why we're a not-for-profit, because we reinvest in our community. Okay. And number four, the fourth P, right? People, planet, profit, purpose. We cannot forget about purpose. So purpose to me is what drives life, what gives us passion, what gives us joy, okay? So when I think about feminist evolution of entrepreneurship, we have to look at the quadruple bottom line. Thank you.
Wonderful. I hope people listening are taking notes. I hope they also started maybe to open the websites of our panelists, because, for example, Janelle, you are very upfront on the values that really are embedded. Casey, you were talking even of the DNA of the company. Janelle, what does it mean to be a feminist entrepreneur for you?
So for me, building an intersectional feminist entrepreneur, or being an intersectional feminist entrepreneur is about building and operating a business, like Gerbin said, that is founded on feminist values. It's about questioning, challenging, divesting from traditional frameworks of entrepreneurship that are centered on colonial, capitalist, patriarchal, consumerist practices, strategies, and ideologies. And it's also about imagining and creating better ways of living, better ways of working, better ways of doing business. And yeah, I feel like we're all going to kind of, tread over the same words and the same paths again. But that's because at its core, this is a very, there's room for generative thinking, there's room for innovation, but there are fundamental core values of feminism that are implicit in building a business like this. And it's about abundance, it's about joy, it's about honoring the self, it's about honoring families, kinship, all the things that are really, really important, and that's it for me. It's building a business that honors all of that.
Wonderful. Even bringing the joy, as you just said. Casey, bringing all these values, how does it look like in your sector, tech? That's quite particular. You got into it in 2017 also, where some words will come back to some of the values that just have been also introduced by Janelle and Gerbine. But what is it to be a feminist entrepreneur for you in the tech sector?
Absolutely. So I have been in tech since 2000, so that's a lot more, but I have been an entrepreneur since 2015. And, at the risk of repeating the obvious, I am a Black entrepreneur, a Black woman entrepreneur, a French-speaking Black woman entrepreneur. And I'm not going to say that I'm also a mom, which is even more, rare in the tech sector. So feminism and feminist entrepreneurship involves at its core it's an activist effort for me. It's all about, to level the playing field and implement, I think, fundamental changes to establish mechanism that Gerbine and Janelle spoke about, that empowers not only me as a woman, because I feel like every single step that I go through is like a new path, is something that have never been traveled by someone. It feels like they've never seen someone like me in those spaces. But it's also to empower other women to reach a point where conversation like this one we're having today and inequality are really not anymore necessary.
Wow, I'm taking notes. I was also reflecting on some of the other conversation, actually, Casey, that we had, and you're so consistent and authentic with what you just said, and bringing that into your platform. Jess, you're also supporting your clients to bring this, right? You said when you introduced yourself that you were really passionate to supporting a very specific, I would say, type of person, right? Some values in it. What does it mean to be a feminist entrepreneur for you and for your clients, maybe even?
Well, I first of all, I just thank you for all of your amazing definitions. I think I started doing feminist entrepreneurship, if you can say it like that, practicing feminist values in my entrepreneurship before I even knew what feminist entrepreneurship was. And I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but it came about in my business sort of organically. I got into entrepreneurship and learned this skill of web development because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I did that because I felt that the normal structures of work and, the 9-to-5 grind, all of that was not a structure where I could thrive myself. And so I wanted to try and do my own thing. And so I tried to find a skill to do that. Of course, being an entrepreneur is way harder than having a 9-to-5 job in many, many different ways. But it's also more freeing because you're working for yourself and you're working towards something that you believe in. But it was really when I started working with Indigenous women and trying to pass on these skills that I had, because I thought, well, surely if I can have these skills and start my own business, I can pass that on in communities that are remote and that don't have access to employment or entrepreneurship like we do in the city. And what I realized when I was working there is that even with those skills, given their unique lifestyle needs and how much they give to their own communities as moms. Sometimes some of the entrepreneurs I worked with had 8 kids. I realized that where I could make the biggest difference as an entrepreneur is to be a business that could partner with entrepreneurs like that and enable them to continue contributing to their community the way they have to, the way they need to, while also partnering with me and building something together, because it's very difficult when you have all these competing roles, especially as a mother, as a community leader, as a woman. It's very difficult to also be able to run a business. And so I thought I can help in that regard. If I have the opportunity to give, I can do that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So just in the first question, we're listening how there is an intersection, like not an intersectionality, of course, we'll be discussing, but also a strong intersection between systems, businesses, and individual experiences ourselves and the people around us. What's also interesting, Jess, you just mentioned it. You started to be a feminist entrepreneurship even before knowing it or calling it this way. And I hope that the people also listening to us are connecting some of the elements that you mentioned to what's happening in the business world, but we're not calling it feminist, right? So if we say words like ESG, right, environmental, social, and corporate governance, there is feminist values into this, right? If we talk about DEI, which is very strong, very important in businesses, implementing really equitable and bringing back actually just social justice in businesses. So that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is also feminist values into this. So it doesn't seem to be the case. So mainstream DEI and ESG is very mainstream. It's accepted. It's in the language that even like a corporation use, large corporation, small corporation, everybody. But when it comes to using feminist values and practices and showing them up, there is a kind of a stop. It's almost like a frontier that seemed to be more difficult to open. Why is that? And for the people listening, can you give us very specific examples of how it looked like to be a feminist business? So maybe starting with Casey, with your platform, how are you bringing these values and turning them into practices and in your operation?
No, absolutely. Thank you. So you talked about ESGs. So I see a lot of organizations, specifically the big ones, that are now finding it hype to include into their marketing material and into their missions. But this is something that I'm pretty sure, looking around the table, all of us have incorporated by default, because that's how we operate. ESGs was something that I've built into my platform at the beginning when I was actually creating the product itself. It was very important for me because of all the discrimination that I have lived, and I have seen my colleagues live, that we had implemented within the beginning of the platform as little blind spot as possible. So we capture information of demographics around a company, all the way to ESGs. We ask about diversity, but we also ask, all the other diversity. We ask about LGBTQ, we ask about disabled owners. What we want to do is, if you choose to opt in and share that information, then it's available for people to choose you as a supplier, as a vendor, as a partner. But what is really interesting about what we're talking about here, and I feel like this is a little bit like a documentary that I hope our kids will look at and think that it was crazy to live like that, because I feel like institutions are not catching up to the reality. They're not catching up fast enough to the reality of society. And it's almost like justifying the right of breathing. It's almost we here have to justify the right of being women in business. And I think this is appalling. And this is what I'm trying at every single stage to eliminate, and to also call out those who say that they are adhering to those values, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Casey. Janelle, what are your thoughts about what Casey just shared? How would you, I'm pretty sure you would relate to some of it, considering our previous conversations.
So yeah, so I'm so sorry. There's just so many thoughts going on in my head.
Right, exactly.
So centering Indigenous, Black, and women of color in our own businesses, in our own business, as an Indigenous woman myself, within our hiring practices, as well as in our marketing, our clients. Not to say that we don't work with white feminist entrepreneurs, but we really want to center experiences and voices that are underrepresented, especially like Casey is saying, in the tech world. Technically, we're in the STEM sphere as well. And as an Indigenous woman, we're less than 1% of the people that are in the STEM environment. And so it's really important to center those values and our journeys and our people in the work that we do. Valuing non-traditional learning and skill development journeys. So, for example, not just hiring people with degrees, honoring self-taught professionals, prioritizing autonomy within our work environment. That's a really important thing as a mom, and that was important for me as a neurodivergent person even before I became a mother. And that means being committed to having 100% remote work environment, only working 4 days a week, having shorter work days, and also focusing on scheduling work around our lives instead of having standard work hours. So we have team members, they like working, 10 to 4 every day. They like having that expectation. And then we work with creatives. I'm a creative, I'm an artist. I need to be able to work when I'm inspired to work and not just, based on this very traditional 9 to 5 kind of aspect or timeline. And kind of like building roles around the skills and passions of the people that we hired, and adapting and being supportive of changes. So for example, as a mother and having other mothers on our team, switching roles depending on capacity. We've had people who were able to do more creative work and then they became a mother, and then they were only, we had to switch so that they were doing more of a consulting thing because that worked for them. And now as they've gone childcare, they can go back. So it's really about flexibility and the humanness, the messiness of meeting people where they are. And I think that that's a huge thing, like living in the mess, whereas so many of these systems have a very tight framework that ignores the mess, ignores the reality of lives. And we need to be able to be in it, acknowledging and flexible of, all that stuff that's going on.
Wonderful. Thank you for both of you to be so pragmatic and practical, right? Casey, on your platform, everything to really change the supply chain, working with different organizations, opening contracts, interacting with different people. That's a policy that have been advocated for actually for many years. It's coming back from federal. So you didn't wait to implement this change. The title of this panel, I remember you, is Leading Change in Canada's Small Business Ecosystem. Janelle, also what you spontaneously set up is really a humane way to do human resources, right? Like taking off the violence of certain practices that are pushed to employees. Jess, how do you embed all those values in the operation of your business? How do you?
I loved everything that Janelle just said. I can relate to that as well. In my business, I primarily partner with other entrepreneurs like myself, and to me, a normal working environment, like a traditional capitalist system, subordinates people. Subordination is at the core of every work environment that's traditional, and subordination makes us ill. Like, it's not good for us. And so for me, starting my business and working with others, I like Janelle, I give people all the flexibility they need. We set our own hours. I think equality is key for everyone to feel like they're contributing and that they're not subordinate to anyone. They're equals and their ideas matter, no matter what their skill level is, no matter where they're at in their journey. And also that as a group, when we collaborate, we support each other in learning as well, and we try to grow with each other. So you're not kept in your position, whatever that may be, because that's what you're paid for. No, we are trying to grow and learn together. And that's what's going to make us thrive in the end. And lastly, I think I'll add, there's more we could talk about, but I think another key thing for me is transparency, because a lot of times there's a sort of secrecy around business, like how much is a project worth, who's getting what. For me, everything has to be transparent. So no matter who I work with, they know what they're getting paid, what I'm getting paid, what the whole project is, and we negotiate that together, and we put a lot of thought into equal pay for everyone, and for them to have the freedom to change their mind and renegotiate at any given time. So that's really important to me as well. And for us to like always be discussing like what is the system sort of hiding, like for us to analyze together what the system is sort of trying to do to trick us at any given time, if that makes sense. It's a little vague, but yeah, transparency as well. But I agree with everything you've all said so far.
Well, let's add Gerben's thoughts on everything. As you just said, Jess, we agree. It's inspiring. We're probably starting also to think about what to implement. I was looking at the questions in the chat. Gerben, how do you put feminist values and operations? How do you set them up in your business?
You know,
If that
as
makes sense.
everybody has pointed out, honestly, like they've said everything, honestly speaking, like the transparency, the subordination, the listening. I think frankly, why have we been in business for 23 years, right? It's because we listen, we hear the community, we take it in, we process it. It's not like this is who we are and it's my way or the highway. You know what I mean? And that kind of traditional top down domineering approach is literally what we're trying to reverse the tide on. You know, we're saying we're here, we're in it together. I mean, for anybody who has read Braiding Sweetgrass, who I literally keep braiding sweetgrass on my table at all times, because ultimately, you know, we are connected to the earth. We are connected to one another. Janelle, you mentioned the word kinship. You know, ESG, right? And DEI. What is that if it's not kinship? Okay. What is that if it's not bringing values of social justice to the forefront and saying, guys, we're in it together. We're all in it together. And not forgetting the planet being our major source of all life. Okay. ESG practices are inherent to everything that we've done. I went to an ESG, course to get a certification. I don't need a piece of paper to tell you we've been practicing this for 20 years plus, right? There's just no question. Plastic is killing us. Power and domination is killing us. Not having transparent conversations is killing us. Subordination is killing us. We need to respect one another. We need to show up as humans in this journey together. This top-down mentality is not really what's going to work. I mean, I'm going to go with Jess and support that. When I started Ongen, we literally said, everybody's in it together. Let's talk. What feels good and right? You know, I started the $15 movement over a decade ago, well over a decade ago. There was just no question. I paid somebody $15 when I was making no money. That to me is value in entrepreneurship. That to me is the value that's going to change the paradigm that is literally killing us. Thank you.
Wonderful. My goodness, so strong. I'll link to some of the questions, one of the questions at least already that we're getting from the audience. We talked about the 3 letters DEI, the 3 letters ESG. I would like to add another 3 letters, which is SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. We also have some large companies that working very like in performative ways around those SDGs. And we know that we are too late. The moment to start working on that was probably when you started actually, Gerben, your business 20 years ago, right? the deadline is 2030. We are not doing what we should be doing. Canada is not doing what they should be doing. SMEs, large companies are not moving fast enough. And we have a question from the audience that says, for business owners who don't have lived experience in intersecting forms of discrimination and don't hold feminist values to naturally infuse into their businesses, how do you think we can bring them along? And that's an important question, right? Because people who register today to attend are probably already connected and feel what you're saying and see it. How and what can we do for those who are not seeing it, feeling it, implementing it in their business? With who can I start? This important answer, because you're leading change. You're inspiring change. Now, how can we push change? Casey, your mic is open.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to say from the previous question, every single
Sure.
thing that my colleagues have brought up, I've been implementing that. I was paying my people before I was making money. And I think there's a theme here. We're all women, right? And it's almost natural. So to go back to you, I'm going to take another lens. And my lens is, in order to bring those along, you have to bring those who they look up to along. And because otherwise, me talking to someone who has a lot of blind spot, no experience, and probably a very defensive way of, reflecting on things I will tell them, which has happened a lot. I prefer to, and this is my way of doing things, and that has proven a lot more efficient, is bring those who they look up along with you. So influence the banks, influence other corporation, influence the C-level, influence the bloggers they read, influence those people who might have a skin in the game in saying, oh, by the way, I'm a little bit more diverse and a little bit more inclusive. And yes, there will always be a bit of lip service and people who will fake it till they get it. But somehow it's a game we're playing. We have to influence those people that they look up to.
Influences people that they look up to. Any other strong advice, Janelle or Gerben? Gerben.
I would love to augment what Casey just said. I think the time has come, okay, where we all understand the very sustainability of everything. Okay, when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we can all agree we need food, we need shelter, we need safety, okay, let's just go to basics, right? I'm a social worker. I don't have a business background. I learned to have a business background because when I left the policy world, which to me was highly inequitable, to start a social enterprise, I had a $300 million budget, guys, that I was working with. I lived below the poverty line for 12 years by choice to start what I started. And why that's important is because I know the people who we can influence, but we have to go to basics and we have to say, listen, if you're a CEO, it's fantastic you're a CEO, but should you be making in 1 hour what your people are making like in a year? I don't think so. Like, let's get honest. Let's have those honest conversations and say, listen, the way that I'm having these conversations, if I can share it, is to say, do you like your employees? Would you like to retain them? Because if you'd like to retain them, maybe for a hot second, like put yourself in their shoes, okay? How would you live on $20,000 a year? How would you live on even $30,000 a year? How would you pay your rent? Can we just talk about this? Right? And when I sit on the food bank boards, for instance, we challenge the board to live on 1 week of what we give to the food bank. We do it all the time. Why? Because people need to understand what it feels like to be in somebody else's shoes. Once we have walked one step in someone else's shoes, our heart and our compassion will open. I can only pray for this, okay? But the reality is we cannot change the world until we have compassion, and we need to have compassion for the experience of others. Okay, that's what I would suggest.
Great. Thank you, Gerben. Very inspiring and very, again, like practical, real conversation have to happen. Janelle and Jess, anything to add to this? Or we can also, I know, kind of take a segue to financing, because we're starting to talk about money. Money is quite central in developing and growing our businesses. Jess, Janelle?
So I'm not like a feminist 101 type person. Like where my heart work is and my rage work is supporting people who are being ground to dust under these systems. It's about validating, acknowledging, and supporting and empowering the work that they do, because the people that are doing the most radical, transformative work in all over the world are also the people that are doing it with the least amount of money, the least amount of support, and the least amount of acknowledgement. So honestly, I'm not going to waste my time convincing people to give a damn about other people. I cannot spend my life trying to convince people who have all of the privilege that they should give an F about how the people they employ are surviving. Like, that is so baseline to me that it's not worth it. That's not why I'm on this earth, to do that. And so for me, I would rather put that work into people who are ready to meet me. There are people who are ready to meet you, meet us where we are. There are people who want to learn more, and our efforts should go there. Absolutely, we need to be addressing systemic changes. We should be addressing policy. We should be, voting for as ineffective or as effective as you believe that might be. But we need to be addressing. We need to be, have all of the irons and all of the fires. And that requires a community effort. It requires support. It requires relationships, and it requires us to build ourselves and each other up, and to take turns doing this work, because it is so oppressive and so difficult and so demoralizing so often. So we have conversations, be upfront about what you believe in, and your people will come to you. And then when those people come to you and they want to work on this, work with those people. And the people who are not there, we don't have to worry about those people. We don't need to worry about having relationships and dragging those people along when there are people who are willing to walk with us and carry the burden. Save the systemic large stuff for, the kind of background work that you do, but the relationships that you're building with people, those need to be with people that are ready to do the work.
That's great. Jess, we mentioned financing a bit. I'll move to this point. Access to cash, it was discussed yesterday. There is a gap when it comes to financing women and gender diverse businesses. We were talking about traditional financing, alternative financing, and things like this. If you're open to it, I would like to ask to each of you, where are you at in 2023 when it comes to access financing to survive, for survival of your businesses in a certain also economy that we could talk about for hours, but also to make it grow? And what still need to happen when it comes to supporting women-led businesses in terms of finance? Jess, what would be your answer for that?
Okay, well, I can say from my business, since I am a sole proprietor, I've always run my business with whatever money I could make from the projects that I work on. I haven't really gone out to seek financing for anything, because it's a scary proposition, and it's a step. I mean, I am just amazed by what you've done, Janelle, growing your own business into an agency. That's the dream. I would love to be able to do that, but I haven't been able to take that step because I would need a lot of funding to be able to give the dignity, the pay, the like Gurbeen said, the wraparound services to the people I employ, I need a lot of funding for that. And I haven't been able to do that with my own earnings yet. I can sustain the people that I work with, my very small team that's about 5 people and myself. But going beyond that has been an obstacle. And yesterday I was very fascinated by the discussion, and I sort of held the question, but everyone kept talking about small loans for women, smaller loans, 150, 50,000. And I always hear about, young men in their 20s that have way less experience than me getting millions in Silicon Valley for some dumb idea. And I thought, why can't we be getting the millions to give great livelihoods to people and to grow our sector and to, be innovative and creative the way that we already are with such few resources, because we all do so much work with so little. And so, yeah, I would love to hear what all the other panelists think about how we can get access to a lot more funding and how we can make what we do seem valuable to investors, not just people that lend, but people that invest, people that are trying to grow businesses. So I would love to know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, we will move to that. I would like to acknowledge 2 things. First is that you mentioned the word scary, and yesterday Melanie was telling us that actually it's not that women are risk adverse, they are risk aware. And I really wrote this sentence down because it's important, especially when we see the failures of some startup having billions poured in for absolutely nothing or very little. And the second thing, I hope that the participants today watching this conversation realize that Jess and Janelle, you are actually in the same sector. You build website, different clients, yes, but you are not in competition. We see it, we just heard it. You're supporting each other, you're looking out for each other. And that's also a different way in leading the change, I think, in how SMEs relate with each other. That's so very Feminist 101, actually. It should be this way everywhere, not competition, but supporting. I think you also mentioned, Janelle, abundance at one point. Was it you? Right? This kind of idea that we can expand not against others, but with others. So back to your point, Jess, around financing. Casey, your platform is very international. Let's go outside of the frontier of Canada. What do you see elsewhere that we need to be inspired of in Canada when it comes to financing women-led businesses?
No,
Because your
absolutely.
international experience is very strong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to start by saying that I am self-funded entirely. I've always been self-funded, bootstrapped in tech. And Jess, you made me laugh when you say that guys get millions for dumb ideas. I've gone through everything. I've met with venture capitalists, banks, investors, and then I decided that it was such a soul-crushing experience that I would just not do it anymore and manage it on my own. The reason I was able to go to build this platform is because I had profit from my other company. So I have 2 companies. And what I'm going to tell you is important because I think Canada has a problem, but I haven't seen it done better elsewhere. Maybe a little bit in some pockets in the US, but that's pretty much it. The system works as it is intended to work. It's not a glitch. As somebody who builds system, a glitch, a bug is something you need to fix. But this is not. This is really done to exclude us women and racialized businesses and to keep us out of the system, period. I've had this surreal experience with my bank. I have a relationship with that bank. My business made about $700,000 in 2021. Great relationship with the bank. I have collateral with that same bank, but the amount of runaround I have been given is absolutely insane. Insane. The reason I was laughing is because just before you asked me the question, and just before today, actually at 12, I was talking to the bank because I wanted to open a loan to allow me to have more cash flow and so on. And that loan came under something very ironic. It's Black-owned businesses and zero barrier loan program. At the end of it, I said, so what is the difference between me and anyone who would ask for a loan, or if I was asking for a loan through another channel? there was virtually no difference, none. So what I'm really hearing is the system is keeping us in a place where it's going to be very difficult for us to break through. And when we break through, it's almost like a miracle, right? So I'm working through the solution. So you'll probably be the first one to know when I have that solution. But one thing is for sure, and I have made that pledge when I started this company, I will do everything I can to always help the ones that are coming right after me. Because if I'm able to crack a code, and if I'm able to do it, then there's no reason someone else is going to spend so much time, effort, energy. This can break families. This can it can break you. And as we know, women are the most vulnerable. And we keep talking about it, we keep hearing it, but the reality is not anywhere where it should be as to how we should be supported.
Thank you, Casey. Gerben, you were reacting with clapping. What's your own experience with financing?
Oh my God, like totally, so I'm gonna echo Casey and Jess, and I'm sure Janelle as well. Like, you picked a panel of people who really, I believe, have pioneered entrepreneurship. Okay. And yes, absolutely feminist entrepreneurship. However, we are all identifying unequivocally that the system is hegemonic and it's set up against us by design. Okay. Everybody who knows me knows that my favorite word is hegemony, because it just fires me up and I'm like, stop it. Every day since birth, we are taught this is a system that you live in. This is your gender. This is how you operate. You're a person of color, and so you belong here. And it's insidious, right? It's layer upon layer upon layer. Okay. Enough is what I say. Okay. Enough, in terms of us not being able to break those barriers. Enough, for us to not get the funding that you give some male Yahoo 20-year-old who has, maybe a small idea of nothingness. Okay, whatever. I'm not even being judgy. I'm actually being honest. This is literally,
Exactly.
guys, if I had started a social enterprise and I was a white man, think about where we'd be today, right? If I had started a social enterprise, and I was in a tech industry. I even proposed a housing solution. We were two women of color. We scored excellent everywhere. What money did we get? Nothing. And everyone's screaming about housing solutions. How about listening to people who are serving the housing community? My organization has made and served over 1 million meals to the homeless. Don't you think we're thinking about housing all the time? Don't you think when COVID happened, we decided to create a meal product that people can make anywhere in the world with just warm water, hot water? Guess what? We are doing the work, and we're doing it despite the system being set up against us. So isn't it about time the system gives us just a minute of recognition and saying, guess what? Maybe they're onto something. And we're not looking for approval. We're not looking for appreciation. We're not looking for permission. So to hell with that. What we're looking for is a little bit of equality, just a little bit.
Wow. And you said just a minute. Can we have just a minute? As a moderator, you gave me the perfect segue to say that we actually have about 5 minutes before we move to the audience questions. And that's important because I'm seeing very interesting questions, but also just comments to what you're saying. 90%, I think, of startups financed by VCs fail. So that's billions of dollars probably that are going into these ideas that makes us all smile. Janelle, yes, please.
So we met
No, of course.
last week, right? And I talked about how, like, Casey, in 2021, I had the most successful year of my business yet. I've been with my bank, have a relationship. There's been several tens of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank month to month. I go and ask, what can you give me as, you know, a revolving line of credit, credit card, whatever, and nothing. They are willing to give me nothing. They said, we could give you a $5,000 credit card, but you'll have to put $5,000 towards a GIC. That was March of last year. I was so, and sorry, that was initially, so that was March of last year when I was like super, super set, because every year I go into the bank and I'm like, how about now? And they keep shifting the goalposts. And I'm livid right now because my husband this week checked the mail. He gets an offer from our same bank. His bank account, he opened it at the bank after I did. He's been parenting. He's put his career, he's self-employed also, he's put his career on hold for the past 3 years so that I can grow my business. They offered him $15,000. Hey, Nico, we'd like to offer you, you've been pre-approved for $15,000 of credit in your business account. And I am livid. I am like, oh, I am raging. I have a lot of words for this bank and I cannot wait. I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to bring this letter. I'm going to say, and he's white. He's a white man. Do they know that? I don't know, but isn't it suspicious? Isn't it suspicious that in this same family, I'm the one making the money, frankly. He's been parenting, but I'm the risk. They can't even give me $5,000, but they can give my husband, who doesn't have anywhere, has been processing. His bank account's at zero right now. That business account that they offered him $15,000 for, it's at zero. I can't get like, oh my God. So frankly,
Wow.
yes.
Thank you for sharing this.
They have been asking us, government has been asking us, banks have been asking us, venture capitalists, funders, they've all been asking us for years, what can we do to support women? Like they don't know. But as everyone else has been saying, it's a feature, not a bug. The oppression is a feature, not a bug. It's not a bug of the system. It's designed, it's working explicitly. It's all interconnected. And so in terms of what financial solutions are available, I honestly think our best bet is a federal minimum basic income strategy, because Canada has an extremely high number of women and children living in poverty, which is a tragedy in its own right. You know, like full stop, that's horrific. In terms of its impact in feminist or female entrepreneurship, though, you know, women who are just trying to survive don't have the energy or the equity to start their own businesses, to invest in their businesses, or to build their businesses. And so having a political, having a systemic, you know, change that addresses that base level, that bottom line of inequality in our society is honestly the best thing that we can do to elevate women and gender diverse entrepreneurs in Canada. And so I think that's a really good, I think that's where we should be putting our effort, frankly, because the banks aren't listening. You know, we're building our own systems of funding, and you know, women, we have to do it ourselves because no one else is going to help us.
Wow. We have comments, especially one. Thank you so much, Janelle. We have comments in the section from one participant that I would just read. My business is fully self-funded as well. Like Karima, and even with 2 million in gross sales, we have trouble getting financing. All credit is in my personal name. We reached out to programs specifically set up to help entrepreneurs, futurepreneurs, BDC, and so on. And even there, struggle to get through all the bureaucracy. So what you were mentioning, Casey, no difference, right? It's just a label, but not necessarily in process anything alleviating the barriers or the complexity of the system. Again, not a bug. It's intended this way. And the person says, a woman at BDC helped us and set us up, no problem. But futurepreneur, we just gave up on. We had to choose between continuing to jump there. never-ending hoops, or actually spend time running our businesses ourselves. So there is a moment where the energy has to go into where it's intended. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. We also have another comment, Janelle, around how you introduce yourself as a neurodivergent woman, and this person is saying how grateful they feel to hear from you as they themselves navigate how to work with their strengths and limits around this, and how the systems again are not set up to allow this creativity, to allow those different approaches to really flourish and create this beauty in our business world. So let's go through questions, and then I want to make sure that I leave a few minutes for each one of us, each one of you to conclude. Just looking at my notes right now. So there is a question around mentoring. That's something that we also hear a lot. There is financing for mentoring programs. So this person is asking, I'll be super interested in mentoring opportunities as both mentor and mentee. Is there any possibility of setting up some connections? Gerben, that reminds me something, because I actually heard you and the panel from CWF, and I actually reached out, and you were so gracious to give me an hour of your life to mentor me in a moment where things were tough. So is there anyone that wants to answer this question around mentoring, mentee, and what did it bring you? Maybe let's go to personal experience. Were you mentored? Are you mentoring someone? And what does it bring? Janelle, maybe?
Oh, go ahead, Janelle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
No,
please,
no, no,
Casey.
no, no, it's
Sorry, I
totally fine.
didn't-
Go ahead, Janelle.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I just talked a lot in a row. So Casey, if you want to go.
Sure. Thank
It's all
you.
good.
Yes,
We're all together on this. I think there's so
Casey,
much
mentoring.
kinship. So it's
Mhm.
funnily enough, I like you, Faiza, and probably other people on the panel. I'm an immigrant to Canada. I came here 23 years ago, and I had no idea what mentoring meant until I met somebody who had a really interesting career and fast tracked. And I said, "What got you there?" And she said it was mentoring. So as soon as I got that, I decided to myself find mentors and understand a little bit more. Funnily enough, I learned other mentoring techniques. So when I was in corporate, I was enlisted as one of the mentees for CEOs. So at Deloitte, which was absolutely fantastic because it jump-started a lot of my career and connections internally. And then I understood, when I became an entrepreneur, one of the first investment I made was to join a group of peer mentoring. So at the time, it was about mentoring by people, facilitated opportunity.
Mhm.
All those are great, amazing. Mentoring is absolutely amazing, and you absolutely have to go through that, experiment it. It's not a one size fits all. I have reservations for groups that do it as a job. For me, mentoring is very human. It has to come through a human experience. I mentored casually, but everyone I meet, I take things that they do. I'm very specific because I like to be, it's almost I learn more on what not to do. That's my way of learning, is when I see somebody do something and I'm like, I'll never do something like that. It's a mentoring opportunity. But if people need a lot more, a structured way to be mentored, there's tons. That's one thing that we're not lacking in Canada. Usually there's tons of opportunities or groups that can offer you mentoring. And just jump at it, do it, find your own style and see what works for you. Don't confuse mentoring and friendship. Mentoring and sponsorship is totally different. And mentoring is something that is serious, and you should take it as such. As you said, you take thanks to Gerben, Faiza, because it takes time. It takes time, it takes energy, commitment, dedication, to give to someone. So, but it's invaluable to have mentors. Yeah.
It did. Jessica, any thoughts about mentoring and mentee? You do have a strong circle of women around you.
Yes, I agree with what Casey said about it being a very serious thing, and I love to mentor whenever I can, and also to be mentored. But in my own business, I love to partner with other women that are starting their own businesses that need support, and I love working with them and like really. Not just like an hour a coffee for once in a while and we get together. We actually work together, and I try to support them in whatever they need support with in their own business. And I think it's important when you mentor that you're mentoring them, and so what matters is their goals and what they need, what they would like to learn, and not just what you're not just depositing knowledge into someone. They need to be a participant in how you figure out what they want to learn and how you can support them. And I think that's very important, and it brings a lot of meaning to my work. I love being able to help someone grow in what they're doing, because they also help me grow. I think in my experience, especially as a coder, teaching is one of the best ways to learn. When you teach, you learn so much in return. And so it's always, to me, it's like a mutual it's an experience where you're mutually gaining a lot from the relationship, and I think it's very valuable. And I see all the comments that people have about having a WhatsApp group and talking to each other. I think I definitely felt since the pandemic, when all the in-person events I used to attend in the city for entrepreneurs, for digitally focused things, tech, those kind of fizzled out, or I stopped going. And it's different when it's just digital. I still do it digitally. I have great relationships with groups online to support groups online for entrepreneurs. But I usually start in person somehow. So I don't know. The pandemic has definitely has had an impact on has isolated us a little bit more. And I think we need to, I at least need to make a bigger effort now to reconnect.
Very much. Anyone else that wants to add on the mentoring question? Mentoring? Yes, Janelle, please.
So I just want to say, Jess, I actually have the inverse. So as a neurodivergent person, as a woman, as someone who struggles with mental health issues, my energy is, like not reliable, not consistent. I don't have the same energy every day. So doing stuff online, and also my auditory processing is garbage. So being in person and like trying to process everything people are talking about is a high mental load. So being able to read and like participate on forums or groups or chats or whatever has been really really a boon to me, to be able to interact with people and participate with people a lot more. Also someone who's coming out of burnout, which is like devastating. That has also helped make things a lot more accessible. I think the mentoring question again comes down to financing. You have people like look at this group of women. We're so accomplished. We have so much institutional knowledge and experience that we can share. But mentorship it's a huge investment. In order to build those truly transformative relationships, we need time and energy to invest in them. And and we should be we need to be compensated. Not we should be compensated, but we need to be compensated because we need to live. And if that time is taken away from our business, if it's taken away from our family, there needs to be some compensation. And so, our businesses need to be doing well enough that we can take that time without it impacting our salaries or income or whatever. So again, it comes down to money, unfortunately. For me, mentorship is kind of, like I will talk frankly and honestly to anybody about anything. If you find me on Instagram, message me if you have a question. I will tell you about my experience. I will give you advice. We don't need to do set up a consulting call or anything like that. I will be very frank, but also I need to be able to, kind of move in and out. I don't do formal mentorship because I just don't have the capacity for that. I don't have the energy. And so my primary priorities are investing in my family and my business and in my own health at this point. But I think so many women are like that. And when we have such a small number of female entrepreneurs who have capacity, but we have such a large number of male entrepreneurs who have the capacity, and then they're actually able to give much more support, and almost like, offering mini accelerator, not just mentorship, but like, oh, this is what you need. Oh, I know this person and this person and this person. Let me hook all this stuff up for you. And all of a sudden they have this golden path just unfurled for them. And whereas we have to piece together all these little tiny crumbs of whatever we can build to, keep ourselves alive. And so again, it comes down to equity. It comes down to these systems. It comes down to these interconnected systems of oppression that make everything so much freaking harder for us, when it doesn't need to be. And that's
I'm so glad you made those points.
Yeah.
Wow. Gerben, please.
And thank you, Faiza, for remembering that we spent a little bit of time together in the early days. So that I'm so glad that was impactful, and I'm honored that you remember that. It's wonderful.
Changed my day and my life. Here it is said.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to debrief on that later at some point. I want to know. The reality is, we as women are traditionally nurturers, right? We are traditionally caring, traditionally, community minded. Okay, that's the baseline, I think, in my humble opinion. And if you want to disagree, that's cool. We can duke it out later. Okay. But basically, like, if you say, hey, I need a half an hour, 1 hour of your time, absolutely take it, no question. But to Janelle's point, we don't have the old boys club, right? We just don't have it. We don't have it. Who has put out that golden pathway for us or taken away the barriers? No. I think we are fighting the barriers, and we are trying every day to break them down so hard so that the next generation, like Casey said, that she's setting a pathway. I'm setting a path. We're all setting a pathway for the next generation. There's just no question. And yet, every year I get asked by every university, can you mentor these students? Can we place them? And I say to them, are you paying the students? I will not take students unless you're paying them. Oh, no. That's up to you. Well, guess what? You guys are the ones raking in all the gajillions of dollars, right? Because you continue to rake them in. And the fact that you're not spending them feeding your students, taking care of your students, making sure that their bellies are full and their placements are paid work, because they are work. I don't have a budget right now to pay them. I would gladly. But guess what? Isn't it incumbent upon you to make sure that some of your sponsorship dollars that you pocket so nicely and pad your salaries with? I have no problem with salaries. Okay, don't get me wrong. But there has to be a value shift, okay? Enough of free placements, enough of free labor. How many organizations co-opt their clients into free labor? Don't even talk to me about that. I have cut off relationships with organizations the minute I find out they're not paying their people. They're running, revenue generation departments. And guess what? They're not paying their clients. How are we breaking the cycle of poverty? We're not breaking the cycle of poverty. And that is what is incumbent upon our, value system, guys. And then, okay, so that's my 2 cents about mentorship, which I love. I just want to close out one thought about finance. There's a lot of RFPs. Okay, there's a lot of requests for proposals, city, province, federal. When are we going to lobby all of the governments, which we are, I know we are, okay, like there's a lot of us doing this, but let's break them down so they're accessible, okay? Enough of this talk about accessibility when entrepreneurs like us and social innovators like us who are trying to level the playing field and change economic structures, we don't even have access to the money that we pay in taxes. That to me is not okay.
Whoa, thank you so much. There is one more question that I would like to ask, but before that, because I would like to close actually, I'm supposed to do the closing remarks, but there is so much things that you are saying that, and I'm the moderator. I have like my head full of ideas, full of thoughts, full of your fire and your passion and your honesty. It's so refreshing, right? I attended other events this week. I'll probably do the same, but it's so all polite and so sometimes like we need those conversation, and I know that the participant will leave very I don't have my word yet. So until I find it, I'll call actually Karen. If you can from CWF, I think you have few things to tell us before I go to a last question in this closing remarks.
Thanks so much, Faiza, for handing the mic over to me. Thank you very, very much, panelists. There are a million ideas that have been shared already, and I hate to interrupt the flow of this, but I do want to call the audience's attention to a couple of things before we close out for the day. If you want to read a bit more about the gender gap in financing, it just so happens that our CEO at Canadian Women's Foundation, Paulette Senior, published a piece on this topic in the Philanthropist Journal, and that came out just yesterday. So my colleague Liz is popping the link in the chat. Give it a read. If you have thoughts about what she says in the article, feel free to give us that feedback too. As we mentioned, this is the second part of our two-part webinar series, and all of you will receive the recording from the first session that we had in case you missed it yesterday in our follow-up email that will come to you soon. And as we also mentioned, this event is a co-hosted initiative between the Canadian Women's Foundation and the In Good Company project that Faiza explained to you a bit at the beginning of this session. IGC is a collaborative initiative all about enhancing justice, diversity, equity, inclusion in the small business ecosystem. And the IGC partners have brought together a community leadership group of small and medium-sized business leaders who are trying to influence positively change in their organizations. And Faiza, our excellent moderator today, co-convenes that community leadership group. So it gives you a sense of the caliber of folks who are at the table. If you are a business owner who's trying to do this work and you're interested in connecting with others who are trying to do it too, we'd love to hear from you. There's a link in the chat to the In Good Company website, and there's contact information there. So please do get in touch, and the IGC team will be in touch with you. And lastly, we do want your feedback about today's session. So we hope that you can take a moment before you log off today to complete our survey, which we're also putting in the chat for you to access. And that is all from me. I'm going to hand it back now to Faiza. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And as you mentioned, I have the honor to convene or to co-convene actually with my colleague Samantha Blostein. It's once a month, I'm sorry. It's this community leadership group where we get together, we share. It's similar, I guess I can say, to the energy that we had today. So thank you, Karen, for extending the invitation for people attending this conversation today to join this community leadership group once a month, as I said, and we really kind of building this blueprint, I think, of what it is to be a feminist entrepreneur and to engage or make sure that women and gender diverse people can get into some of these sectors and flourish in them. So it's about hiring, retaining, growing, and so on. So hopefully we'll find some of you in this conversation. So the last question that I have for each one of you comes from a small business owner that we have here. And they say, I operate a home-based bakery, rainysweetcreation.com. So please click, please buy if you can. And they are passionate about what they offer as baker and passionate about empowering the women. And they share their own path with these women. And the question is, what are some key factors or principles that she can keep in mind to maintain the identity of her business while contributing to change they want to see for themselves and for women as a whole? It's often the dichotomy. I'm not sure it's an English word. I'm sorry, dichotomy. So when we share, dichotomy, thank you, that some business owners tell us out there, oh, but I have to grow my business. I can't take care of changing the world. What's your advice? How are you maintaining this while, again, having your business survive and thrive? And that will be your final thoughts. Casey, I see you have your mic open, ready for your
I think it's been open the
advice.
whole time.
Yeah, it was.
First of all, I just want to say thank you so
Indeed.
much for everyone. Like, this has been enriching, and I find that we have more in common as women than anything. And we need warrior like us to go and be the loud ones and be the one who are going to make that impact. To respond to Rani, I believe that's so well done, first of all, to having set up your own business. Again, I'm always one of those people who say, look, wait until I'm on my deathbed, and maybe at that point I will have real advice for you because I would have done it. Now I can only provide you with my insights, and hopefully it can help you. Identification goes back to identity, right? So it's all about infusing who you are in your business. And I don't believe in making massive changes in the global world until you actually start with yourself, and then the next door neighbor, and then your community, and then one person at a time. I'm also a guest lecturer in a university. I've seen, like, I think 7 cohorts now, annual cohorts. And I love it when somebody comes to me from 4 years ago or 3 years ago and say, oh my God, what you've said, I've applied it every single day in my job. And I've never walked into that room thinking I could make a difference at that level. But I think one thing that is important is reminding us that we're just one person, and with the energy that we have, with the capacity that we have, with the finance that we have, we're not, in our own world, we're super women. We're tackling a lot. So it's all a matter of just impacting one step at a time. It might be paying someone a little bit more. It might be supporting somebody who is more creative into being more creative. It could be, paying a training program for someone. It could be anything. It could also be uplifting someone who at that point doesn't feel like they can do it. So it's small steps make a massive change, in my opinion.
Small steps make massive change. Thank you, Casey. You mentioned the word warrior. It's exhausting to be a warrior. Janelle, you were so open in sharing your own struggles. Burnout is something that we go through, and it's violent, it's exhausting. What's your thought? What would you like to share to conclude this amazing conversation we had today?
Oh, sorry, were we going to answer, did Casey, were you looking for?
Yes, you can. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Because I do think it's really important, because we need more feminist entrepreneurs, right? So I mean, for me, like, this is what I was raised with. These are the values I was raised with. I don't know how not to be myself. I don't know how not to be allowed, sometimes abrasive, because that's what gets the job done. I don't know how not to speak up about what I believe in and live according to my values, it hurt. It's painful. I've tried to, stay silent, tap myself down, adjust my, change myself to fit into other spaces. And it is painful. It is destructive. And so it's maybe that's coming from a little bit, I very strongly value non-compliance in general. I'm a very non-compliant person. And so, so for people who aren't, proudly non-compliant, this is a different journey for you, for sure. And so I echo what Casey said, start small. You don't need to be perfect right now. That's a white supremacist value. We don't need perfectionism. We need people to be, we need humility, and we need people to try, and we need people to keep trying, even when it's messy, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's embarrassing, even when it hurts. So start with your own education. Where are your knowledge gaps? What are your own feminist values that you hold right now? And where are you missing the critical theory? Learn from Indigenous feminists, Black feminists, women of color who are feminists. Learn from them. Do all of that self-work first. And just the things that are really stirring to you, like, you'll know when you learn something, you read something, and it strikes you, like it lights something inside you. Focus on that first. This has to be passion led. It has to be hard work, because it will tear you down. And you need to feel this. You need to be committed to this. It needs to be fundamental in order to pick yourself up and do it again and try again. So don't do it for the check boxes. Don't do it because it makes you look like a better business owner. Don't do it because it's trendy. We also saw what happened in 2020, and now this very violent descent into really oppressive attitudes and beliefs and violence that's happening. You need to be committed to do the work, because it's not sexy. It's not fun. It's largely not uplifting, honestly. It's very isolating, and maybe accept that you're going to have to grow your business small, because you will have people who refuse to patronize you because you're values based, because you're explicitly feminist values based. But that's okay, because honestly, once you find your people and you work with your people, it becomes intolerable to work with anyone else, to be in a relationship with anyone else. It feels oppressive. So know that you're on the right path, and find what will carry you, that nugget inside you that will carry you through this journey, because it's our life's work.
Yes. It is definitely. Jess, your final thought. We are 2 minutes over 2:30. It's tough, right? To be so like, we do have those deadlines. We do have a team also working with us as interpreters. Thank you so much for the additional time. So a quick wrap up, because we do have to
I'll be very quick, because Janelle and Casey already said wonderful, amazing things, and I just love everything you said. I would say to the baker that, and this is what I experienced in my business, when you empower the people you work with to be who they are and bring their be free and be valued for their worth and everything they are, and you encourage whatever passion they want to pursue, it will make your business better. And that's what I experienced. People do their best work when you remove all of the oppression from their daily existence, and I think that it will make, maybe your empowered baking assistant will come up with the best recipe you've ever had. I don't know, I'm not a baker, so I'm not sure about that, but in my line of work, we are the most creative, and we do our best work when we are valued for our worth, and when we're free to be ourselves, and when we can thrive, not just survive, right? So that's what I would say.
Thank you so
much.
And it gives choose your people.
Yeah. And it is a joy to work with people that are not oppressed. Like, it's just a much better working environment. Like Janelle said, once you're working in an environment that is not oppressive, you can't work in any other way. there's just,
Absolutely.
that's why I don't give up
Wonderful.
and go find a job. I'm sticking it out with entrepreneurship.
Let's stay with it. Gerben, you stick with it with your business since 20 years. A final thought. I'm very sorry. It will have to be short, but hopefully we stay all connected through every platform that is available for us to continue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. I'm going to say ditto to all of the above. Everybody has said incredible things. The one piece of advice I have for you, Ronnie, you are baking. You're putting love into the world, my darling. You're nourishing people. Remember to nourish yourself, okay? Because if you are not nourished, you're not going to have an easy time nourishing others. Remember that. If someone had said to me, you know, take it in every day, nourish yourself, be easy on yourself, nurture your spirit and your soul, I would have had a different journey. So I hope and pray that our conversation today will show you that you have allies, you have sisters in this, you have people who are working together, you know, and just supporting each other. Lean in, nourish your soul, and that's it.
What wonderful words. I'm very glad that this conversation is recorded because we know we're going to go through it again. Thank you so much, each one of you, for the time that you spent with us. It's very, very enriching, nourishing, inspiring to do better, inspiring for the change. Thank you for CWF and IGC, all the partners around this panel. And please stay all connected. Thank you, of course, for the interpretation team. And let's all stay connected and continue beyond these weeks to connect, to support each other. What else can I say? Nothing. Thank you so much and take care, all of you. Bye, everyone.